My engaged friend said I wasn't engaged because my boyfriend doesn't want to get married after being together for 3 years. I'm upset because she's right. My friend Elise is engaged to Rick and I am dating Luke. Elise and Rick have been engaged for a year, together for 2, and I've been with Luke for 3 years. The two had their engagement party Sunday afternoon. I was chatting with Elise, looking at her ring, and I'm not going to lie, I felt a bit of envy. Luke and I have talked about marriage, but we haven't even looked at rings yet. He says he wants to marry me, but I do think it's taking a long time. So I asked Elise what made Rick propose to her. She told me that on their first date, she told him that he had a deadline. She wasn't going to wait around for years for a man to marry her. She said she wants kids with the right guy but didn't want to have kids without a stable marriage and a house. Well, they have the house and now are getting married. Another one of her friends said she was shocked it didn't make Rick run for the hills. Elise laughed and said, "Well, it wasn't an ultimatum. It was a fact. If after 2 years you still can't tell if I'm the one, then I'm clearly not, and I will be moving on. Period." I told Elise that if I told Luke that, he would leave me. That's when Elise said that Luke probably isn't the right one if after 3 years he'd leave me for expecting marriage. That hurt my feelings, so I told her that marriages don't always last and doesn't mean someone is the one just because they propose. She said she wasn't worried, that she and Rick were in love and knew life would not be easy, but she's prepared to make it work. She also said she knows marriage isn't for everyone, which is fine so long as your partner feels the same. But marriage is a value of hers, and she wasn't going to waste time with someone who so clearly didn't have the same values of her. That's when her friend asked me what my problem was. I told her I didn't have a problem. Just stating a fact. Then she asked how long I had been with Luke. I said 3 years, and she asked if I wanted to get married. I said yes, and when she asked what about Luke, I just excused myself to the restroom because I couldn't answer. Later when Luke and I left, I told him about the conversation. Luke laughed and called Elise ridiculous. I asked what he meant and he said, "Only desperate and crazy women have a policy like that. Let it happen when it feels right." So I asked him if he wanted to marry me, to which he said of course. I asked why we weren't engaged when we've been together longer. He said he wasn't ready yet and our relationship was fine the way it was. I asked how long he had to wait to know. He shrugged and said, "Does it matter? We're together and that's what is important." He asked me not to be like Elise because he doesn't like being forced to do something. I asked him if Rick felt that way. He admitted that Rick never said he felt forced and that he had been planning to propose to Elise 6 months after they met, but waited a bit to make sure he wasn't just jumping into something. I asked Luke if it would be okay for me to look at rings. He said I could but to not get my heart set on anything because he wasn't ready. He said even if he wasn't willing to spend more than $1,500 on an engagement ring. Elise's ring obviously cost more than that. Rick bought a ring he wanted her to love and did not care about the price. He found the ring she'd like, looked at the price, and saved money to purchase it debt-free. It saddened me that Luke said he was only willing to spend $1,500 on a ring I'm not even allowed to really look for. The two conversations made me really depressed. I'm slightly angry at Elise for her implications but mostly I'm disappointed in Luke. He hasn't mentioned it since this weekend, but it's all I can think about. Is he wasting my time? Edit. Luke told me he wants to get married but admitted he didn't know anymore if he wanted to marry me in particular.